An Ikorodu son to his core, our guest today has made a mark in the real estate business, building his fortune from the ground up, despite a background of family wealth. He has gone into politics and is determined to continue the good work his family is renowned for. You'll meet our guest after this break. This is the Sunday Interview. I'm Jokeli Jadu. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Our guest today is a businessman and politician. He's a real estate magnate and Lagos State governorship aspirant in the 2015 elections. He is Babatunde Gbadamosi. You're welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure.
So let me start like this. Who is Babatunde Gbadamosi?
I am a happily married gentleman with children, most of whom are abroad. From Ikorodu in the eastern part of Lagos State. And I am also a developer, a real estate developer. I heard you call me a magnet and I sort of winced at that. I consider myself a disruptor of sorts. I've come to be a disruptive influence in the real estate business, if you want to call it that, to sort of show people that there's a different way to do things and that we need not carry on with the ways of the old because we've tried them for 57 years and they've not worked. I
was talking about, you. What was growing up like for you? Where did you grow up? How did you grow up?
Growing up was a really, at the time I didn't realize it, but looking back now, it was a really interesting and very rich experience. I grew up initially under the doting wing, I might say, of my grandfather, the late Chief Gbadamosi. And then, because my parents were still abroad, as it was, with their generation, most of them would study abroad and then come back home. But my uncle had come back earlier, so I ended up in his household. That is the late Chief Gbadamosi. And, with him, it was an amazing smorgasbord of taste, sound, visual. It really was the ideal place for any child with any kind of creative bent to grow up in.
So who were some of your earliest influences as a kid? Who are some of the people that you would say formed your person?
I'd say the first person would be, it's a toss-up really, let me be frank. It's a toss-up because, I come from a really large family and we still maintain that extended family thing with the Gbadamosis. There are many, many of us, but we're all in touch and we talk all the time. Even if we can't see one another all the time, we still talk. Always. WhatsApp has helped, So the influences have largely been familial, so to speak. So my grandfather was a major influence. My mom remains a major influence. My dad was a major influence. Uncle Rashid was a huge, huge influence. Auntie Tinu, who was more or less my surrogate mom, his wife, was also a major influence. Okay, Auntie Tinu doesn't know this, and I'm going to say this for the first time on camera. She was the person, not my grandfather. Everybody always thinks that my grandfather was the one that got me interested in politics. No, it wasn't. It was Auntie Tinu that got me interested in politics. Because, there were those long trips that we used to do from Surulere. Auntie Tinu, if you're watching this, you remember what I'm saying. We used to do those long trips from Kuboye Crescent to Oyingbo. or to Jankara to the market. Usually on Saturdays, you would be driving, I would sit in front with you. And we'll talk about, I think if I want to be exactly accurate, it was between 1977 and 1979. We used to have a lot of conversations about politics because they just flagged off the Second Republic campaigns.
Okay.
You know, and Awolowo was out there on the stumps talking to the people about free education and all this and all that. And we're listening to the National Party of Nigeria as well, you know, selling what they had to sell. And we used to have those conversations. You used to, and Titinu used to, you know, dig into my head, so to speak, to find out what I thought. And I was just about 10, 11 at the time.
And you had your own views.
She made me have views. She made me think about these things and really begin to look at life in a more serious way and look at how decisions taken by politicians, you know, would affect the lives of ordinary people.
So who are your role models as a grown man now? Who are some of the people that you would say you look up to, you draw inspiration from?
Elon Musk. That's one person I draw inspiration from. Akio Morita, the late founder of Sony. If you read the story, if you read his autobiography, you cannot but be inspired by him. I'm inspired by guys like Mahathir Mohamad, the former Prime Minister of Malaysia. Lee Kuan Yew, I'm not very familiar with, but I've seen what he's done with Singapore. And I'm still hoping to read more about Lee Kuan Yew, not just his autobiography, but, you know, other people's opinions about him.
His exploits too.
You know, find out more about him. Obafemi Awolowo was an obvious influence, very obvious. Role models, my grandfather is a big, big role model, big, massive. You know, he was a guy that punched way, way above his obvious weight. His obvious weight was this. He was a secondary school dropout. He dropped out of Baptist Academy in Form 2 to allow his younger brother, the late Justice Odesoya, that's his actual younger brother, from the same father and mother, but they just chose different surnames, you know, different parts of their father's name, to allow his younger brother to, you know, get through school and basically just sponsor him through school, you know. And this guy grew up to become Nigeria's first indigenous industrialist without a formal education. He went on to build Nigeria's first trunk A road. I mean, a guy, right? Not the government. He built Ikorodu Road. Not many people know that. But he built the original Ikorodu Road between 1947 and 1953.
You were talking about your granddad, your grandfather, and you talked about him dropping out of Form 2.
Yes.
Would you say he influenced you? Because I know that you had to drop out from
Of LASU.
LASU.
Yes.
And see how you've turned out. As in, would
Well,
you say you
the
picked an
circumstances-
inspiration from him?
No.
in any way?
The circumstances were very different. In his case, he didn't have
The means.
the means,
Yeah.
you know.
You had the means.
In my case, it was free, more or less. I think I was paying 15 naira per term or something like that per semester as school fees in LASU at the time. But there was an invasion of the school by, let's just call them overzealous mobile policemen. I was in the back of a Mami wagon under arrest, myself seriously brutalized, beaten black and blue, bleeding from head to toe. My blue jeans had turned red completely. I'd lost my top. My entire back and the whole of my head was lacerated from gunbutt beatings. A bottle of Coca-Cola had been smashed across my forehead. And that's where I got this scar. From a bottle of Coke was smashed across my forehead by a mobile policeman. And I was dumped in the back of a pickup, of a police pickup, the tarpaulin drawn down, along with a member of staff of the admin department of the law faculty where we were arrested from. And a canister of tear gas was thrown into it. So I nearly died.
Wow.
I came very close. You know, they say when you are close to death, your life flashes in front of you. Yeah, it did. My life did flash in front of me. And it was my aunt and my aunt, Auntie Wanu Falami, and my late uncle that came to rescue me from the clutches of the police, who didn't have a charge. They just kept me in a cell full of criminals. No medical attention, nothing. I could not bring myself to go back to LASU after that incident. You know, people talk about post-traumatic stress disorder. I didn't seek any professional help. You know, Nigeria was not that sophisticated yet, but looking back now, I know that that's what I suffered from, because I could not even bear to hear the word LASU. I was in hospital for about 3 months, recovering. So, no, I couldn't go back to LASU after that. And I never did go back to school after that.
So let me ask you, away from your business and politics, how do you relax?
I play table tennis.
Okay.
Now, not too long ago, I was more or less a couch potato. You know, I would watch football, watch soaps, watch all sorts of programming on television. But I noticed that my children were becoming couch potatoes too. So it started with driving them out. You know, just get out of the house. Go and do whatever you want, you know, but get out of the house. So they began to play football at the estate park just there. And so to encourage them, I decided to buy a table tennis table 3 years ago.
Are you interested in even watching football? Do you have a team you support?
Well, when I lived in London, I was a postman, briefly. And I was a postman in Highbury N5. So at some point, I got the Arsenal Football Club shift. I used to actually deliver mail at Arsenal. And I'd watched Ian Wright, early 1990, you know, banging the goals for Crystal Palace and then cross over to Arsenal. You know, so I became an Arsenal fan, and I've been one since.
Do you describe yourself by any means as a romantic person? Do you have any form of romance in you?
I think my wife would say that I am. I think my wife would say that. She'd say that I'm a very romantic person. But I don't know, you know, I just get on with it. I like to make her happy and make her feel wanted and loved and so on. So
there's something they say about Nigerian men. They say if a Nigerian man does not smoke, he will drink. If he doesn't drink, he will womanize. Which of the three do you do?
I don't do any of the three. I drink a bit, you know, socially. But I don't smoke.
Okay.
I did once, many years ago. But I stopped eventually. Well, yes, I womanize with my wife.
Okay, and that's allowed.
You know.
So tell me, how did your journey into business go? How did that one go?
I've always been in business. I've always been in business. I've never really not done business. And I was lucky enough to marry a woman who's also into business. And so understood the impulse to sometimes take what look like crazy risks, you know. I started business when I was, I think, 15, 16. My younger sister was reminding me the other day when somebody made a silly post on Facebook and said, why don't you remind these interesting people of how you actually started when you were selling industrial needles to underwear makers in Ikorodu and Lagos Island. And that's actually how I started, because I had forgotten all that. My usual starting point when I tell my story is when I used to wash Danfos
Wash the Danfos, yeah.
at there's a place called Onishigida in Ikorodu. It's on the way. It's the road that links Alhaji Shulaja Alagago Street to Sabo. And I used to live at Muslim Hostel, which was owned by Alhaji Yaya Oshuala, the chief imam of Oriwu, the current chief imam of Oriwu Central Mosque. And this one time, you know, I was in Government College, Ikorodu at the time, and there was this nice uncle that drove a Danfo, and he would, you know, take me and a friend. Always, he would sit us in front as he was taking off from where he parked his Danfo across the road from the hostel. He would take us from there to school free. He always did that. He had done it about 5 or 6 times before I decided that, what can I give? And he never took money. So I said, what can I give this man? So I decided to start washing the Danfo. So I washed it the first time, second time. The third time, he gave me 5 naira. The fourth time, he gave me 5 naira again. And he now made it habitual to just give me 5 naira every time I wash. And I was beginning to think, okay, now this man has defeated the purpose
of the washing in the first place.
You know. That business grew, and my guys that we used to play sets together in the evening, I decided to tell them about it and get a few of them involved. So, you know, we got to the point where we were washing like 30 or 40 Danfos every night. I mean, that road became a Danfo washing center. And from there, you know, the bug was awakened in me for enterprise.
Wow. Well, we'll go on a short break now. When we come back, we'll still be speaking with real estate magnate, developer, he called himself, businessman and politician, Babatunde. Gbadamosi, stay with us. Welcome back. We've spent the last couple of minutes getting into the world of a businessman, a real estate developer, and he is Lagos State governorship aspirant in the 2015 elections, Babatunde Gbadamosi. Thanks for staying with us.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask you how your move into politics went. Now I know how the move into business went. How did the move into politics go?
Okay. After having been in the real estate business for a while in Nigeria, and having had to contend with a few attitudinal issues with public officials at various levels, I came to the conclusion, you know, juxtaposing that with the state of our development and the state of our, the abysmal state of our development and progress, I came to the conclusion that the only way to solve the problem would be to have political power. The power to make decisions, to decide how the taxes are going to be spent, which would hopefully stop the leakages, because we had a lot of leakages, and we still do have a lot of leakages. I mean, for instance, the current administration never tells us how much they're spending on any projects. They just build. And we don't know the cost implications and how much debt we have, how much money is being spent on these projects. So there's no transparency whatsoever. And the previous administrations chose the option of telling us how much it was, but the amounts were always outrageous. But
you aspired to contest for the seat of the governor in 2015, and we are close to 2019 now. Are you going to try again?
I don't know yet. I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure that Nigerians are ready for, no, Lagosians. Let me just say Lagosians. I'm not entirely sure that Lagosians know what development is anymore. I don't think so. I think people are quite happy. It's like a Stockholm syndrome situation. People are already in the hands of kidnappers, and they now have a lot of sympathy for their kidnappers. In fact, they adulate them, they celebrate them, they decorate them with garlands year in, year out. So you know, you come out and say we should be better than this, and people shout you down. You know, I look at Lagos. And I look at cities like Kuala Lumpur, and I'm wondering, why on earth is Kuala Lumpur better than Lagos? Why? I mean, in any other world, Lagos would always be better than I can list it. I can give you a list of cities: London, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore. The only cities that perhaps would be better than Lagos would be places like Tokyo, because of their serious investment in technology, Seoul, Beijing, Shanghai. Even Dubai would not compete with a Lagos that would have followed the trajectory that had been laid down by the Jacondes of this world. I mean, in 4 years, Jaconde was able to build 1,000 new schools, 20,000 affordable housing units, built hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of new roads, including the Lekki Ekpe Expressway we're talking about now. 20 brand new general hospitals provided. And it wasn't just the structures, though, was it? It was actually the services that were provided. Okay? He was able to provide free education from primary school through to secondary school. Okay? And to Polytechnic, because people were going to Last Tech, La Poly as it was then called. Okay? And it was free during the Jaconde period. And Jaconde more or less set up LASU.
Yeah.
He didn't quite get to execute it, but he passed the law that created LASU. You know, he got that law passed. He prepared the campus at the old Government College Ojo, you know, which is what LASU's main campus is now. Jaconde did a lot of stuff, and he delivered a lot of services to Lagosians, and people really didn't appreciate it, and they still don't appreciate it.
How can we make real estate available to the average Nigerian? How can we make housing
available?
Yeah, housing available to the average Nigerian.
The answer to that question lies in the CBN and the federal government. If the federal government insists on borrowing through the issuance of treasury bills at around 18%, we will never get housing in Nigeria. We won't. Until the federal government becomes more conservative in the way it goes to the market to go and borrow money by selling treasury bills, until they reduce the rates of treasury bills to something around 2 to 3%, which is the normal rate around the world. Until they do that, we will not get a proper housing market. Because if they don't do that, banks will always take their funds to the treasury bills market. And it will get to the point, unfortunately, I'm going to say this, it will get to the point when Nigeria will no longer be able to borrow in international climes. And you start borrowing more and more heavily locally. And it's not sustainable, not at 18%. It's not. That's a fact. If you keep borrowing at 18%, then you're going to be putting a bigger and bigger yoke of debt on the people. And government is going to, and you can see it happening already. Government is going to go all out and just try and take as much as they can from the people in all sorts of guises. So you get multiple taxation, you know, all day, every day.
All right, what is the biggest challenge of the real estate sector in Nigeria, and how do we begin, you know, to find a solution to it?
Availability of finance. That's the biggest challenge we've got. Affordable finance is not available in Nigeria because the government is borrowing irresponsibly through treasury bills at 18%. I would never borrow at 18%, and I'm a businessman. You know, it doesn't make sense. I would never borrow at more than single-digit rates. And even the single-digit rates, I would never want to go above 6% interest per annum, which is why I don't borrow in Nigeria. Okay? Real estate will not work if the overheads, if the built-in overheads are already too high. And once you cross the 10% threshold, it's already too high. You know, for developers, that is. It's already too high. The government needs to do a reappraisal, you know, of how it manages its finances. And anti-corruption needs to become real anti-corruption, not lip service anti-corruption, such as we have now, where some people get to issue contracts of $26 billion without any questions asked, without going through due process. And some people get pulled up for apparently spending money that was properly given to them, that they did not go into government to take for the purpose of political campaigns. So I don't know, all sorts of allegations have been made about the previous administration, how much money was stolen and so on. And yet, till date, we haven't seen even one conviction.
So let me ask you, as we move to a close, if you wanted to change, if you had the power to change one thing about this country, what would that one thing be?
One thing? I will dissolve the states immediately and return the country back to the 1960 Constitution.
So last, let me ask you one thing you know about yourself that a lot of people do not know but you like to share.
One thing I know about myself that people don't know. Gosh, that's a tough one. I'm pretty much an open book, and everybody pretty much knows everything about me. Let me see. I have a bald patch that people don't actually notice.
Oh, really?
And I'm not going to tell you where it is. It's right there in the public glare, but nobody ever notices it. I don't know why, but it's there.
Okay, we'll look for it. Thank you very much, Babatunde Gbadamosi, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. It's been nice having you.
Well, we have been speaking with businessman and real estate developer, politician, Babatunde Gbadamosi. Of course, he's been letting us into the world of real estate and politics. Thank you again, viewers, for watching the show. Remember, you can keep up with us by sending your mails to the Sunday interview at tvcnews.tv. We will be waiting to hear from you. Thanks again for watching. I'm Jokeli Jadu. Bye for now.